evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you today. I hope you have already enjoyed looking at the exhibits, and I hope you enjoyed some of this wonderful music. We're going to have our program start with Miss Annie Lloyd, who's going to sing for us.
So I'm going to say, I never practice anything, and so I always go in and the feeling, the vibes inside the place before I sing the song. But this morning we were putting the food together, and so they said, "Well, you got to take my song." So they come up with a bass verse of this one too. How sweet the that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 bright shining as the sun, we know less day to sing God's praise. And when we first begun, and this is my testimony, so I know we all got something to be thankful for. So let us all praise God. 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 Praise God.
We have changed our program just a little bit because over on the second page is where we're going to have some recognitions. And David Henderson was instrumental in providing the Gideon Lane photographs to the Historical and Arts Council. And I have asked him to come and just say just a few words before he moves on to his second point.
We started this program, Gideon Lane photo collection, back in the mid-80s. Mr. Lane was a native Nebraska. And after World back to his hometown of Glasgow and became a photographer. He was the original, as far as I know, the only photographer there during that period of time. I was attending church with his daughter Grace, and I asked her what would happen to his photo collection. She said, well, I have it in boxes and suitcases and shopping bags, someplace in my storage shed. So over the period of several months, we gathered this together, and she gave this to myself and my wife with a promise that we would develop into something worthwhile. So over a period of time, this took place, and we got it put together with some donations from her estate, and we donated it to the Lake County Historic Arts Council. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but if any of you seen it, sure, yeah, okay, go by and see it, and I think you'll appreciate it. This was done by any prophet, any person, except the historic arts. And we were happy to do it, we had a great idea to do it, and so, go by and look. Thank you so much. It's good to be here. Thank you.
There are a couple of examples of those photographs right there on the table. They're absolutely beautiful, and a wonderful account of history.
Pretty well detailed account of the beginning of this program from the beginning. So I'd like to look at this to the historical archive.
Oh, wonderful.
That is truly an example of what has happened to us over the past 50 years. Over and over again, people coming and saying, we want to donate this, or would you like this, or whatever. And it's just been so enriching. And we've tried to be very faithful and taking care of all those items. I want to just mention that we are 50 this year. You may have seen the article in the newspaper that said something about we are 50 and strutting our stuff. If you didn't see that, well, we are. But when I look around and think of what we are all about, our current board members and the community have supported us, and we do stuff all the time. We just do stuff. And if we aren't busy doing stuff, we find something to do because we are very involved. But one of the things that I want to mention, that tonight it is not about us. It is about the board members who are being honored tonight. There are so many of you who have, over the years, you've made such wonderful, wonderful contributions. And words cannot possibly say how much I appreciate what you have done. We think about it every once in a while, but now we want this night to be your night, a time when you can be appreciated. And I'd like for those past board members to just raise their hands. Let's see who you are. And while their hands are up, the rest of them, I cannot thank you enough. Honestly, I just cannot thank you enough for all that you've done. The foundation that has been laid, the wonderful, wonderful vision that you had. And not only did you have a vision, but you worked and worked and worked until you made it happen. So thank you. There are examples and examples and examples in the wonderful scrapbooks that we have. And just the fact that those scrapbooks are there gives me just such a deep appreciation because somebody kept a record. And I would
friends from the past who helped me with this. So, the first name that comes to my mind, even yet, when I hear about the Clay County Historical and Arts Council, is Gertrude Price. Gertrude was the wife of beloved United Methodist pastor Edgar Price, a native son and a relative of many people in this room. She was the mother of Wanda Galloway, who was a force in her own right in arts and education. She was the mother of Charles Price, the renowned author of Western North Carolina novels, or novels set in Western North Carolina. Gertrude was the driving force behind the formation of the Arts Council. I believe she was part, and perhaps founder, of a beautification group, out of which came the Clay County Historical and Arts Council. Gertrude was what we would call today a mover and a shaker. She was bright, determined, focused, resourceful, energetic, passionate, gracious, all those things, and above all, she loved this community. What an amazing mentor she was to me. She saw the need to establish an organized effort to obtain and preserve the history of our county. And she also saw the need for some arts education in our schools. Other folks who were also vital to the beginning of the Arts Council from those early years were Ruth Henderson, Jean Dammers, Bill Bradley, Judy Powell, and there are many others whose names I couldn't think of. Someone, probably Gertrude, learned of a program called Third Century Artists, and it was through the North Carolina Arts Council, funded by a state program called Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, CETA. And in 1974 or 1975, the Arts Council had an intern for a year who had a background in dance and drama. Her name was Deborah Murray. She was followed in 1976 by another intern, Susan King, and in 1977 by yet another intern, Jimmy Hicks. The Clay County Community Theater was established under the first intern, and it grew and continued under the second and third interns, and in fact became the Big Block Players, who, as many of you remember, were the community theater group in the area until about 2008 or 2009. It began under the auspices of this group, the Clay County Historical and Arts Council. And then it became strong enough to form its own 501c3. Our beautiful Peacock Performing Arts Center is here through the generosity of Willa Blitzing, but she was inspired by the talent in this area, and she saw the need for a performing arts center, so we're so fortunate to have that. Susan King, who was the second intern, her expertise was in theater, and she shared, I've reached out to her, we've stayed in touch through the years, and she shared with me information from the scrapbook that she kept while she was here. So hers are pretty accurate. On June 30th, 1977, the Oakdale, no, that's, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Anyway, she shared with me from her scrapbook clippings and memories. And one of those was, she says, and this is, I'm quoting her, I found a write-up for a celebration Joe Powell, The Christmas Story. He couldn't the older gentleman couldn't remember his lines, so he had a tape player in his costume and would play the lines and then speak them. Jimmy said it didn't necessarily flow well, but with some long pauses, he got the story out. I thought that was fun. Jimmy also put together the Festival on the Square, and look what the Festival on the Square is today. Amazing. There were several classes at the museum, such as making birds out of pine cones and clay, taught by Maggie Masters, and carving taught by Fred Smith. Both were accomplished craftspeople who were connected with the John Campbell Folk School, and I'm sure lots of us remember them well and fondly. They were wonderful people. So there are some memories from the early years, thanks to Susan and Jimmy, who've become lifelong friends, and I have the Arts Council to thank for that. So thank you. All of you who are here tonight are the folks that someone else will be talking about years from now. Thank you. It's important work, and it contributes not only to preserving our history, but also to the quality of our lives. The Arts Council has been the hub of the wheel, the foundation of many organizations and events that have sprung from that well or are the spoke of that wheel. And isn't that what it's all about? Perpetuation of these good things for future generations. There's a saying, it sounds like a proverb to me, but I like it, and so in summary, I would just say that this saying says, if you want to walk quickly, walk alone. If you want to walk far, walk in unity. 50 years, that's far, that's unity. Thank you. Rob Hyder's up next, and I hope he's going to tell us about his work with the Arts
That's way more organized than I can be. I remember when Gertrude Price called me and asked me if I'd serve on the board in 1974, and I said I would. And there's just been, 50 years, I'm having a hard time remembering everything, but I remember when Jimmy Hicks started the festival in the square. I thought that was a great thing. And probably in 1982 or 1983, we were playing in front of the courthouse door. It was the Fires Creek Outlaws, Clay Logan, Ed Roach, and it was about 90, I remember it was in the 90s that day. It was hot. We were playing, and I didn't, I was kind of going through the motions, not really paying close attention to the set list, but I remember seeing in the Asheville Citizen that the writer says the temperatures hovered near 95 degrees. Fires Creek Outlaws played Throw Another Log on the Fire. So, obviously not a good song to play on the 4th of July. But I became involved with I was, I guess, chairperson for the music beginning in 1986, I guess. And we had, I know the Arts Council was responsible for bringing folks like, even previous to that, David Holt, who part of his career was spent playing with Doc Watson. And David's a wonderful storyteller, a wonderful musician. He's not playing as much now because he has some health issues, but he presented programs to the school, and he also did a couple of concerts here back in the late 70s, early 80s. Liz and Lynn Shaw, we had them 2 or 3 times at the Festival on the Square in the 80s. And this was all because the Arts Council, the Historical Arts Council, worked closely with the North Carolina Arts Council and helped fund these acts. So it was really the first time probably since the 40s when a lot of country and bluegrass groups were touring the area, like I think Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs and Bill Monroe and some of those places, some of those guys played at some of the old schoolhouses in the area. But it was the first time we were able to bring folks that actually performed for a career to the square. And we started the street dance. That was a kind of an agonizing period. Convincing the board that we wouldn't have a lot of trouble street dance on Friday night. And you know, all these years, I don't remember anyone getting out of hand or causing a ruckus or anything, except we did have at some point, Charles probably remembers this, one of the vendors was threatened by a couple of yahoos that hung out on the square drinking. But we, with the help of the sheriff, we got that cleared up pretty well. So, one thing that I'm particularly proud of the Arts Council for is the fact that they have helped fund a lot of music in Clay County, not only in the school system, with North Carolina Symphony. John Brown was here recently, and he's been before. Also, I host a songwriters showcase at the Peacock, and they've been very generous in helping fund that series. And these are folks that they're all trying to make a living, playing their music, writing songs. And most of them from Nashville or Texas or Atlanta, but it's turned out to be a good series, and part of that's because the Arts Council stepped in. They also fund the Friday night series that CCCRA started up on the square. And gosh, there's more than that. Somebody else will have to remember, besides the school system that they provide funding to. And I'm very interested in history, and in 2007 we began working on the Cherokee Homestead Exhibit, and then my attitude was that would be a nice annex to the museum, because the museum had developed a really good Cherokee room in the museum, along with lots of other history. And one of the things that is encouraging to me is that, like today, we had about 90 fourth graders out there with the education outreach program at the Museum of the Cherokee People, Cherokee, there to conduct games, Cherokee traditional games, and it was fun. And we've done that since about 2011. Sandy Nicolette started that, and the Arts Council has helped with that. We just finished a little trail, because the trail, or the steps to the museum from the exhibit had to be closed. It became dangerous, and CCCRA and the Arts Council partnered to create a path at the back of the exhibit up to the side door of the museum, so it's a safer route, and a lot of people are already using it. So it's just those things that, you know, a lot of people don't realize that the Arts Council's been involved in, and they were a big, they were an encouragement to me when we actually began Clay County Revitalization Association. There are people who served on their board, who served on the Arts Council's board. So the important thing to me is that with the nonprofits we have, with especially CCCRA and the Arts Council and the Peacock, is that the partnerships are so critical. And I just look at all the nonprofits from the standpoint of CCCRA as a partner, and feel like that, you know, anything that we can do to help to bring those groups together and to co-op it's a good thing for the community. So, and I appreciate the opportunity to come up here and talk about this, although I'm so disorganized as, hearing Jane do just a super delivery, and I'm just kind of flying by the seat of the pants, but as I usually do. But I'm sure that some of these guys that will come up after me will cover some bases that I hadn't thought of. And I don't remember when I came off the board. I stayed on the festival committee until probably 4 or 5 years ago. Patty would know, because Patty has really done a great job picking up where I left off. And I always look forward to that festival. I think it's one of the best things the county has to offer. So I'm glad it's still going and going well. And so I'll turn this over to, is it Harry? Harry Long? Harry? It's your turn, Harry.
When Sarah Smith called and say, we're getting some of the early board of directors together and board chairs together, you're one of them. And I said, no way, I'm not that old. So it was kind of amazing. It made me remember that this is my 50th anniversary of being in Hayesville. I moved in 1974, and I'm aggressive to do because of people that were here. That I came without a job. I was unemployed, and of course, nothing is secret in Hayesville. So within 2 weeks, I had a call from Mary Catherine West saying, well, you're a college graduate, you got a master's degree, you can be a substitute teacher, make some money. Okay. And the first day she called me in, though, bless her little heart, she sent me to the first grade. Scared the dickens out of me. But thank you so much, Mary Catherine. That started things rolling. And there is a tie-in in that first couple of years. One of the first things I did, for whatever reason, was join the Lake County Historical Arts Council. It was inexpensive. I think the membership was $3 or $5. Unemployment. And so that started my connection there. Now, I digress again to say, as far as the West family, I was a photographer. It was long before digital cameras, so that's old film cameras, and I had a darkroom I could develop like one. So I also got to be a stringer for the Lake County paper. I did sports photography. And I had the pleasure of taking many pictures of a basketball star known as Gil West in high school. That's how old I am. And of course, Gil has gone on now to wonderful, great things. But related to that, when I got on the board, and we can't pinpoint the exact year, it was probably early 80s, that, of course, things were much smaller then in terms of what all was going on with those councils in the jail. The main exhibit room then was mainly, there were tables there for board meetings, conferences, and classes. There were art classes that went on in the evening there in that room. All kinds of other classes, craft classes that has been mentioned. And I even did a photography class there with a slide projector. Remember that? It's when we talked about how you do speeds and f-stops. Yeah, that's all gone now anymore. So there's not a lot of tremendous memories that I can share with you that I had, except for the fact that during my tenure here was, and Rob mentioned this, it was the first time I think that we'd ever gotten the North Carolina Symphony, the whole symphony, to Little Hayesville. And the plan that day had been to have them out here on the courthouse square. I mean, can't you just picture that? The whole symphony out here on the lawn. Fortunately, it was a little cloudy that day, and they were concerned about putting their instruments out. So we went to the high school gymnasium, pulled out some bleachers. In fact, I helped pull out some extras because the crowd was more than I would have thought it would be for that. And talk about the symphony getting a Hayesville welcome. I mean, most people clap for the symphony. Not in Hayesville. People cheered, they I mean, it was quite a reception. I mean, it was so enthusiastic. The conductor, when it was over, he said, "Thank you." He said, "We have never had a reception like this." And it was wonderful. So with those beginnings, and that was what I said, the council has gone on to sponsor everything from puppeteers, all kinds of educational programs for the school system. And at the risk of taking my life in my hands to disagree with Reba, it's not about us as board members. For this organization to survive 50 years took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and effort of passionate volunteers. And every one of them deserves accolades to be here 50 years later and to have expanded to what it is today. So I'm really proud to have been just a little small part of that puzzle. And thank you for letting me be here tonight. Okay? Next, I didn't read my program. The Fanny Watson.
Slow, but to me, I'm running. It's so good to see you, and I love this Arts and Historical Council. It's very close to my heart. And it has taken so much to bring us here. So many great, I call you great people. Thank you, thank you. So I'm going to share with you, in a haphazard manner, some of my memory. Just some major projects. We added a kitchen during the day that I was there. We put the new metal roof on the old jail when I was there. And Steve Cox called me and he said, "Fanny, we can't really work around that chimney that good. What do you suggest?" Mother, take the chimney off, and on we go. So, but it's been great to have that as the museum through the years. One of the things I think of the Gideon Laney, we were so fortunate at the time that David brought this to us that we had Bud Gainsway and his wife, who was the great Elizabeth Gainsway. And they took that project on and fulfilled that, got them framed and matted, and did such a great job. So even though they're not with us, I do want to recognize their efforts in helping us get the Gideon Laney project done. And I still love to look at the pictures. They're just so sweet and so special. At this time, there's always issues that you can address. And one, do you remember the Nelson Village? Kathleen and Garnett's village up the road. Dear Garnett and Kathleen, their health turned bad, but it was such a unique place to go and to take people. Come see the Nelson Village. Come see the Nelson Village. Well, unfortunately, they were not with us any longer, and the family did not wish to keep up with the village. So here we are at the Arts Council deciding, should we bring the Arts Council, or should we go up there and keep it going, or should we bring it, dismantle it, and bring it down and put it below the museum? There were many meetings and a bit of anguish as to wanting to keep it survive, but in the long run, we just felt like it was not a project that we could keep going. But if you remember coming up the hill, where the Indian, our museum, the village is now, there was a white house there, and it was, we call it the Thompson House. Well, something had to be done with that, and the fact we owned the land, but it was in poor repair. It was visited at times by her daughter, Barbara Busolari, to the Arts Council. For some reason, I had Ruth in my car, and we were coming down the hill from Berlino's, coming up toward the town square, and up through the hill, and I can't remember the conversation, but I said to Ruth, look at this back of the museum. What do you see? And Ruth said, I see an Indian village. And that was such an insignificant comment at the time. But as I look at it today, how wise she was. She and Barbara dedicated hours and hours and hours to the museum. They brought in the mask, they worked on the exhibits. And speaking of an exhibit, we shall not forget, I call it the cross-stitch quilt that hangs as the centerpiece as you go in the museum. I happen to be a adult social worker, and there was a little lady who needed some help down warm place, and I can't recall. And I was visiting her one day, and I said, she said, I've got something special. And I said, you do? And special, I thought, that's okay. And she said, I'll show it to you. And she went to the bottom of her bed and opened up the whole chest and brought out this blanket that was folded and well covered. And she said, this is put together from my ancestors while they were on the 12 Tiers. And I thought, and she said, as we talked, and she laid it out on her bed, and I was impressed, but I was not as impressed as others who would have been and have been through the years. And she said, but I've lost the map. And for those of you who are familiar with this term, map would be who made the different pieces. And as you recall, if you've not been in, then you need to take a look at this quilt. Each section, she said, was made by a certain one in the family as they went on the 12 Tiers. I can't verify, I wasn't there, but this is the little lady's word. So I said, okay. And I said, what are you going to do with it? She had no family. There was somebody that lived down in Texas that she'd kind of raised. And we talked. And it came to mind. And I said, would you like for that to be in a museum?
Oh.
And she didn't quite understand. And I said, we show that in the museum. We're connected to the Cherokee. So, long story short, I got Barbara Busolari and her mother to come down to this lady's house. I stayed outside, and the little lady, in her humble being, her humble way of life, pulled out the blanket and spread it on the bed and showed it to them. And I stayed out. Later they came out, and Ruth said, yes, we can use that in the museum. Well, there was some more negotiation, and the little lady said, before I do that, I want this in the paper. So dear Debbie Jo Ferguson came and sat down with this lady and talked to her and wrote an article about her 12 Tiers blanket. In the meantime, she went to the nursing homes, and the stepson in Texas came up to tell her bye. And it'd been a few weeks, and I thought, I don't know about the blanket. And I asked a friend who happened to know her, and she said, and Barbara Bussalara. She worked so hard with her friend, patching it up. It was a bit frayed. And stabilized it as they do in the quilt world. Got the frame, saw that it was hung. And we are so thankful. And then we have thankful people. It could not be there without being in an air-conditioned atmosphere. So then came the heating and air for the museum that followed up. So I do want you to know about the blanket. I want to say quickly as we go on, do you remember we had Clay County, our antique roadshow? We had that a few years while Bob Grove, James Snowden would come. People would bring their antiques and go through and get value. That was fun. Also, we had a high school talent show. That was fun. Wanda Galloway would put that together. We had judges, great talent from the school. And then we also started sponsoring the art and portrait contest at school for the students and for the public at large. We put an ad in the paper. The adults as well as students would have a night. We'd have a night and celebrate their talent. The festival on the square, I never slept the first night. You were just so worked up about what could go wrong. But thanks to Glenn Love and for many people who put that and worked so hard to see that it went on. I call that a birthday gift to the citizens of Clay County, that they did not have to pay to come and enjoy such a great weekend. There was the all-night cooking. In the meantime, the courthouse closed. There were challenges as to finding restaurant facilities, and we had people who would started bringing the porta johns, and that was a great help and assist to the festival on the square. In the meantime, there are just few things I want to mention. Our dear Glenn Love, who put so much help into this area, and Bud and Liz Gainsway, Barbara and her mother Ruth, and dear Wayne Smith, he was so helpful in so many projects we did. And dear Carl Moore, who's gone on and devoted so much time. John Corn was a very important part of our board, and we were so fortunate to have him. David and Ann Sensor were good to have in many ways. Joanne Woody was my right hand in many ways. Wanda Price, and then David Gohagen and his wife. That's just to mention a few. And I would go into Rob's many times and prime his shoulder or just say, what now, Rob? What now? What are we going to do? And thanks, Rob, for your support. Thank you, girls.
I knew I was up there. Get up there, Harry, I need you. Well, I'm sorry to say I have laryngitis, but my school teacher voice, I probably don't need a mic anyhow. I'd like to say hello to everybody, and some of you are my former students, and I think that's absolutely wonderful. And it's so good to see my former students involved in the community in this way. As you know, I was always interested in not only what I was doing in school with my students, but in fun and games with my students and leading them into all kinds of fun and games. I don't really have a whole lot more to add. So much has been covered. I don't have great recollections of having anything to do with all of the behind-the-scenes work that was done all of the time. I was teaching school, I was going to school, I was rearing children, and I must tell you that my great-grandchildren are reaping the benefits of all the work of this council. When they were here last summer, we went to the jail. They absolutely love museums. and they were locked in the jail cell, which I thought was very appropriate. They went to chicken pins and had ice cream. They particularly loved running to the bathroom outside. They think it's very cool that there are bathrooms right here that they can access from the street. And they play all the time here. But it's partly because my granddaughter, their mother, spent much of her summertime here when she was a child. And she loved being here. And so her children now love being here. And Festival on the Square was one of the things that we always did, and it's always been something very important to us. I was asking Charles permission a little while ago to mention him, because one of my memories of the Festival on the Square is cooking the meat. The guys would set up the cooker outside right across from Cutworm's store, down here, right down there, so they could have access to water from the courthouse. And they spent the entire night stoking that fire, turning that meat, just filling the entire atmosphere with that fabulous, fabulous pork fragrance that enticed everyone to come and eat at the Festival on the Square. And when they got to the Festival on the Square, not only did they eat all of the wonderful food, but attended all of the wonderful vendors that were there. I'm wearing a necklace that was made in 1988 that I bought downstairs, and it is historically accurate with the buildings. Tigers is on here, Kelly's Drug Store, which was on the corner, for those of you who don't recall. The courthouse is here, the old jail is here too, and in 1988, it was no longer a jail, of course, it was what it is now, the headquarters for the Arts Council. But it's one of my favorite possessions, and I know that a few of you have these, and it's just a wonderful artifact and bit of history, because it does carry the history. I'm very interested in the history of the county. I didn't move here until 1966. I can't help it. I've only been here, 58 years? I don't do math very well. Not as recently as Harry, but I had a 4-year-old, and I was pregnant when we moved here. My husband was managing a company that had been transferred here to all of the buildings over there. ACI was American Components Incorporated, and they occupied all the buildings across the street. So that was my first introduction to the history. And the industrial history of this county is very, very interesting. Everything that even goes back beyond the Ritter Lumber Company and up to the things that we have now, the Drake and all of those kinds of things that we have. It's just fascinating. But I wanted to, I'm rambling and I shouldn't do that, I'm sorry. But Charles Lee was not by himself with the pork on the square. I know Scotty Penner was with him also. And another thing I remember about Charles is that he was in charge of lining off the squares for people to put their tents. And I remember him taking that chalk marking, probably borrowed it from the school, to line all of those. And that was one of the wonderful things that's already been touched on, cooperation between the Arts Council and the school. Not only bringing things to the school, but involving the students in what was going on. And I remember, Harry, that concert. I was there. It was fabulous. And the symphony is going to be at Cherokee High School very soon, by the way. You can buy tickets, I saw. We can buy tickets. But I remember it was a fabulous experience, not just for our students, but for the entire county to have the symphony. And a year ago, I think it was, members of the symphony have come to the county, and they have gone to the library and done workshops for the children. It happened to be that my great-grands were here, so of course I hauled them down there, and and they got to practice, they got to try out playing ukulele and a violin. They thought it was a fiddle. I said, oh, it has another name too, it's a violin. And they even let me try bass, which was kind of interesting. But it's that cooperation that I think is so wonderful. During the festival, for many, many years, all the other civic organizations were part of the festival on the square, which truly made it a community event. I know the Lions Club at one time made funnel cakes. They did that for several years. Then they were allowed to sell their rooms and light bulbs, all which profit went to blind community, as we know. The Civitans were very instrumental, and I know that Ann Setzer was very involved with Civitans. They were a part of it. We know that the Boy Scouts, I remember them doing a kudzu demonstration at the festival. There are pictures of it. I know, I've seen them. The many ways you can use kudzu. It was very interesting. But all of the organizations kind of work together, and I think it's just fascinating. I wanted to mention other things that the council has done that I have found particularly wonderful, and Fanny has alluded to some of them also. One of my very, very favorites is advertised here, this garden tour. That was such a wonderful event. We went to people's homes and looked at their gardens. We also did the garden at the Arts Council. But then we also had authors reading their works at people's homes. Janice was one of the readers, I remember. And then we had a wonderful meal at the Cotton Door. It was a whole community involvement that the Arts Council had put together. It was just fabulous. Brenda, I think you read it also, didn't you? It was a great thing. We've also had several lectures lately that the Arts Council has sponsored, lectures in this very room, and they've been so interesting. History of the many components of the county and of the area, things that affect us every day because it's part of our history. And then the appraisal fair, I remember very much saying, Fanny, I never had anything worth anything. I do remember going to the appraisal fairs and Bob looking at my wonderful artifacts and saying, oh yes, this is definitely not worth much. And I think that many of you might remember the year that we had our native son, Rudy Davenport, do a Christmas concert in the area at Peacock. Rudy does not live here now, but he grew up here, and he's a composer and an organist and pianist, just marvelously talented young man. And he did a concert, and that was sponsored by the Arts Council. And these are things that they just enrich our lives so very much. And I know that people are taking greater advantage of these than they used to in the past, because I see a lot of people at these events who are coming here to these things for the first time and are just amazed at what we have to offer here at this Arts Council. And I think that I probably come to the end of this, except, do you know, one of the things I need to know some more about, that I was doing some research for something I was writing, and I found out that there were potato houses in the county. Do y'all know what potato houses are?
Root cellar?
There you go. Well, potato houses were community buildings that were constructed for people to take their potatoes and have them stored. And they were kept at a uniform temperature by people who fed fires. And they were in the communities. There was one, let's see, right out the road, across from Sylvie Penland's house. I know I'm saying something I shouldn't say, but I know there was one there, and that's how I first found out about them. There was one up on Elf, I think it's a really cool idea. So that's one of the things. And there's another project I would very much love for us as a council to take on, and that is highlighting some of the photography that is being done by former students of mine. David Woody, who recently retired from the wildlife, he's a fabulous photographer. Sandra Hallfield has become a wonderful photographer. Sally Brock, photographer, wonderful things. Anita Tyson, these are all former students of mine, and I see things that they have taken photos of, and I click on it and say, yeah, that's good, that's good. I don't know a thing about photography, but I know that these are very talented people, and I just think they've learned it somewhere, and they're documenting the place they grew up, and I think that's important, and it's going to become part of our history. And now I will shut up. More kids.
Honestly, I'm speechless. I'm so appreciative of what we've learned here tonight. And there are others of you who could share the same thing, and I welcome you to show up at the museum sometime and share with Molly. I just appreciate you so much. I really, really appreciate what you've shared tonight. Thank you. Can we give them another hand? I have on the program that I wanted to just do some recognitions. One of those is Ron Beal, who all of us know this is the Beal Event Center, and I do appreciate him for his efforts to benefit the organization here so that this could be renovated. He did the same thing for the Old Jail Museum, so we certainly do appreciate Ron Beal and his efforts to revitalize the community. Another one of those recognitions, I wanted to just ask Molly Seeger to come, and while she's coming, I'm going to tell you that we have a special event next year, which will be the 50th anniversary of the Old Jail Museum. So, welcome Molly, please.
As most of y'all know me as Molly at the museum. This year, I've just gotten the okay that we're going to be open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in May up until Memorial Day. And after Memorial Day, we'll go back to Tuesday through Saturday up until Labor Day. And probably have weekends in the fall. Everybody keeps talking about the history, and I have to say that literally I got dragged into the Clay County Historical and Arts Council by my mother. As many of y'all remember, Betty Sellers, who often got called up in the middle of the night to say, please, we need another speaker, will you come? And of course, I being the baby child, I would be the one who would be, tagging along. And who knows, how I would wind up being in charge of the jail. Yes, a lot of people do call me aside and say, oh, they let you out. But this will be my 18th season.
Wow.
And I would expect everybody to help me celebrate next year. I did have to come in and look at the books, because I kept thinking it was 74 when the museum started. No, it was 75. So we have a year to get ready for my big year next year. And I want to thank somebody tonight. I want to thank Before we had the electricians come and redo the museum, it was John who helped keep us in lights for several years. And I just want to say thank you, John.
We also have, another special guest here, which is, of course, and we want to welcome Janice, here tonight too, Janice Moore. We honor Carl Moore and the, wonderful contributions that he made to preserving the history of Clay County. You can see examples of his book up there and the little write-up about his life. But I wanted to recognize that the editor of his book is Eileen Overzook. And Eileen is going to come and share just a few minutes about Carl's book. Let's welcome Eileen.
So who am I? How did I get involved with Carl's book? I was an editor for about 10 years of software user manuals and magazine articles and marketing materials. But I met Carl on his wedding day in Atlanta when he married my roommate that I had all through college at LaGrange College. And that's how I got invited. And that was way back. So, in the olden times. But anyway, over the years, I've visited them, and my husband and I have come here. We lived in our motorhome for about 6 years. We didn't have a house. We were always coming through here even before that happened. So, I just wanted to let you know that Carl and I had a unique friendship. And he was one of my best friends, and I'm having a hard time right now. But I'll see if I can get us through this. First of all, before I tell you about how we worked on the book in the beginning, he would love this cake. He would really love that, and I wish it was real. I love it too. Somebody did a great job. Anyway, we started working on the book in 2004 when Janice and Carl visited my husband Ed and I in Florida, where we were living with our motorhome during those years that we didn't have a house. So he brought one of his parts of one of his chapters about the Cherokee Indians. Well, Ed and I both loved Indian culture and history. We were always paying attention when we were traveling, particularly out west. So when I read all about the Cherokees, which I knew about because I'm actually from Savannah, Georgia. My grandfather was born in Hiawassee, and his parents were born in Clayton, and they are buried in the little Blaylock Cemetery. There used to be a village there called Blaylock, and that's where they are. So I'm kind of from this area, way back, but born in Savannah. But anyway, Carl and I started working long distance. I wasn't here. I was traveling. So thank heavens for computer technology and email, because that's how we did it for a year and a half, because Ed and I were all over the United States and Canada in our motorhome. But I was dedicated to this book. It was so interesting, all the research that he did, and he hooked me right when he gave me a little bit of that first chapter. I said yes the next day, and we worked on it until it came out in 2007.
had one time, my husband and I moved in 2006. We had, Carl and I came across some obstacles that we had to solve, some problems we were dealing with captions and pictures. And you see his book, you see how it's so well organized, because he's got all this information from people in the community. You all are just amazing, all the stuff he gave him, especially the pictures. And I remember the Tiger store and Opal Tiger, and all the pictures that she gave him, and quite a few of the people gave him documents that he needed to work with. So we've got all that worked out over the, 3 years? Maybe 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that some of the things that we went through, I'm going to say that to tell people, because you might be interested in the novel way that he paid me. I'm not going to tell you now, but if you come on Memorial Day Saturday here in the square, I believe there's going to be a tent there, I'll tell you the rest of the story. But we're going to save it for then, okay?
So, she just gave you a little bit of a hint, but our museum opening, Eileen will be giving you the full story about Carl's book. So, anyway, we want to move on just a little bit. Thank you all for those kind words. I wanted to just very quickly recognize our current board. This is not our night, but these are people who have worked so hard to make this happen. And I want to just very quickly call names and have you stand up. I want, first of all, to recognize Patty Moore, who is our treasurer. I want to recognize Sarah Smith, who does everything. It was Sarah's vision and creative idea that put this evening together. So I really do appreciate her. I want to recognize Joan Jockey, who is the, there she is. Joan Jockey, she organizes the festival on the square. Some of you may know that, but if you don't, she is absolutely phenomenal at that. I want to recognize Ron Wallace, who is not here tonight, but thank you, Ron, because he's recovering from surgery. His wonderful photographs enhance what we do. Please remember that. Kathy Melling and Steve Melling back there, new board members. They know how to put together a fabulous cake.
That's right.
Pam Story. Pam she organized the food along with
Thank you, Pam.
And Joan was also on that committee, and Annie Lloyd was also on that committee. So thank you for the food tonight.
Thank you, ladies.
Laura Thomas was responsible for table decorations. Lori Ross is just going off of our board, but she is a wonderful contributor as far as she's doing a lot of the articles that you see in the paper are coming from Lori. Pam Roman is not here tonight, but she is a very, very important part of this group as well. She provided the table decorations for us to work with. So I do want to just thank all of our board members who worked so hard to make this happen. Did I miss it? Mark?
Mr. Beck.
Please come up here.
Ms. Melissa?
I was going to look at my program and remember that Marcia Christie is co-president along with me and absolutely does a fantastic job. Marcia Marcia is going to talk about our partnerships in just a moment.
Actually, I think that Rob and Sandy did an excellent job talking about our partnerships. But I just wanted to say in addition that we are a designated county partner with the North Carolina Council of the Arts. And that's how we get a lot of our funding, and that's why with their strict, can you come up to the right word? Their guidelines, that's a good word. Their guidelines on how we can write our grants, we provide wonderfully quality programs for you. And so if they ever are available and want to go into schools and see the programs that we bring in, they are really phenomenal. And I just want to say, I'm impressed. I mean, sitting here listening to all that y'all have said about what this wonderful council does makes me really feel good about being a part of it. I don't feel like I do a whole lot. Lisa says that I do, but I just try to keep her straight sometimes, right? But I want to just, I was just impressed with all the things that have gone on in this county and all the programs that y'all have provided over the last 15 years. I have 3 loves in my life other than my husband. Music, art, and history. And history and art were 2 of my majors in college. So that's how I ended up with Arts Council. And I have to say, the first person I met when I came to this county was Betty Gray. And Betty said to me, well, you'd be a perfect fit for the Arts Council. And so I never forgot that. And then somebody introduced me to Reba, and we went from there. So I hope that I can, if one day, somebody will stand up here and say, she did a lot, just like Jane and Sandy and all of us said, and Fanny about all of that y'all have done. So thank you very much. And so I'm going to turn this over to Rod Tiger, who is going to sing us a song as our ending performance. Yay!
While Rob is coming up here, I want to follow Marcia's example and recognize someone who got me into a lot of trouble with this Arts Council. That's Louise Lorenzen, sitting right there. She was the grant writer for this Clay County Historical and Arts Council and did an absolutely magnificent job. And so one day she said, I'm no longer going to do this, and somebody needs to take it over. And somebody raised their hand, sort of like this. And I've been doing it ever since, and it is an absolutely wonderful job. It is a hard job. It is a constant job, but I love doing it. I love doing it because when I get finished, I can always say, wow, look what I did. And then somebody comes along and says, well, you need to make these corrections. And so, well, anyway, that's the way it goes, because working with this North Carolina Arts Council is a wonderful privilege.
We love you,
And
Reba.
so I want us to finish this off with Rob. And also, I want to finish it off by telling you to please go by and get some cupcakes to take home with you. Because those cupcakes were supposed to be yours to take home with you, or to eat here, but you didn't, so we're going to. I think he's waiting something that I want you to know about. Just let me go ahead and tell you, okay? We'll have that back there so people can see that. I found out something very interesting on the internet about Rod Tiger's book. She found out that it is, number one, one copy is going to be sold for $97.50. Another thing she found out that was that people were previewing that book, and they were giving it 5 stars. So I think that's something very, very interesting, and maybe something that she should be feeling some pride about. So we do want to honor Carl Moore and his book just one more time. And
let's don't forget our young lady sitting over there, and the project she does on the district.
Thanks.
Teresa Thomas.
Thank you, Jenny. There are so many people here that we call everybody's name. I know I'm leaving some people out, but you're all very, very special to us. All of the partners that we have, that was one of the things that I do want to mention, that we partner with CCCRA. We have Sandy Zimmerman here, who is, does anybody here know Sandy Zimmerman? But she is absolutely phenomenal with what she does, and she is our partner because it's not that Sandy plans programs and we can invest in those programs like we do with CCCRA or Peacock or something, but Sandy donates to us, and that HHI donates to us, and we appreciate it so very much. And we also want to recognize the town of Hayesville, and because they give us a donation each year. We thank you for that, and of course we get a grant from the Fred A. Moss Foundation. They're very generous with us, and we appreciate them. So these are partnerships that enhance, and you've already pointed that out very adequately, and we appreciate everything that you've recognized tonight. So now, I do want to just let you know, thank you for coming, and as Rob Tiger sings, that will be our finale for tonight. Thank you.
These two teams have one out in front. Does that come through out there? Well, I write story songs mostly, so I'll do this song that I wrote several years ago called Lightning Road. It's about moonshine. And, I don't think there's a lot of it going on here now. There's probably still some. I remember this story about Uncle Everett Crawford. When the first typewriter came to Clay County, came to the courthouse here, he and someone at the school, I can't remember now who the faculty member was, they typed a letter giving permission to a resident of Tuskegee who was a shiner, giving him permission to make moonshine and sell it on the road in front of his house. And he thought it was the real deal because it had been typed, it looked official. And he set up a stand with selling foreign liquor, and got reported, and the revenue, someone from Asheville came to visit him and asked him what he thought he was doing, and he said, well, I'm selling my whiskey. I've got permission to, and he reached in his overall pocket, pulled out this typed letter, and they arrested him, and I think, as should have happened, his family got so upset that whoever the other person was responsible for writing that letter had to go to Asheville and sit in federal court at his trial, and I think they ended up paying all of his fines. And they were told if anything like that ever happened again, they'd be the ones serving time. So anyway, they let the guy off of that. Anyway, this is called Lightning Road. There's a little bit of truth in this story, a little bit of fiction. Yeah, late that night he heard his engine moan. At first he's down in Georgia, driving his bone. He's on wheels when he loaded up the gun. Said the devil himself wasn't fast enough to catch him on the lightning road. They haul at China, Georgia, and then up to Tennessee. Sometimes he'd run by the light of the moon, keep the peace seen. And he'd go to church on Sunday, put his money in the plate. Some called him the apostle, others called him the devil's mate. Well, he made that for 20 years, and he never had been caught. But the government wanted taxes paid on all that liquor law. Yeah, late that night he heard his engine moan. They're thirsty up in Tennessee. Drive to the home. He was hell on wheels when you loaded up the gun. Said the devil himself wasn't fast enough. Catch him on lightning road. Running 90 down the winding stairs, he sailed across the lake. And then he saw the lights of Shooting Creek. He thought he had it made. But there was a roadblock up ahead, and he was feeling kind of tired. So he turned off the overlooking and a flaming ball of fire. Well, they never found his body, no trace of burning car. But Billy seemed to disappear down like that shooting star. Yeah, late that night he heard his engine moan. They're thirsty down on Grasstown, dry as a bone. He was on wheels when he loaded up the gun. Said the devil himself wasn't fast enough. It's more lightning road. Way up in the laurel thicket on the creek called the Hurricane, there's an old man making moonshine, but nobody knows his name. When old Jack Frost comes calling and the leaves are on the ground, you can see the hood of his 41 Ford those revenuers never found.
There was a young man who came to do a program in the schools, and we sponsored that program. And he is Derek Lugo, who is from Brooklyn, I think, and decided he was going to walk the Appalachian Trail. And he later wrote a book about that called The Unlikely Through Hiker. And so he is here visiting with my son and daughter-in-law, and he's going to be speaking at the school tomorrow. And on Saturday morning, he will be at Cheek Pens to do a book signing. So I want to encourage all of you to go and meet Derek Lugo and look at his book. Thank you so much for coming. It's been wonderful. Get your cupcakes if you didn't already. Thank you again.
One thing I do want to say is I have a songwriter's show at the Peacock Saturday, and of course the Arts Council is a major sponsor of those events. So if you haven't been to the Peacock, it will be a good show. There's 3 Nashville songwriters there, two women, a guy who's originally from Minnesota. Grace Pettis is a Texas native, but should be a lot of fun. So, kind of, if you haven't, make a habit of visiting the Peacock every once in a while. It's we're just so lucky to have it. Thanks again. Thanks for your